the kind of the age appropriate things. This is the second episode of the coaching series that we're going to do. Um, so maybe just as a little bit of an overview, I want you to summarize a little bit like what you just said, maybe a little bit more detail about how to coach each age group and kind of how it would evolve from the young to the old. And we're going to keep it so because there's so many things to talk about. We'll keep it. The assumption is we're talking about the AAA level or like the highest level of each age group because if we go younger, we could be talking about it forever. So we'll just assume the AAA higher kids that want to progress to higher levels of hockey. Um, so maybe talk about a little bit about that evolution from like the U10 up to, or even younger than U10 up to, junior U20 kind of age.
Yeah. So the evolution of it is basically like to keep it really simple is the younger that you are, the more um, the more less specific you are, I guess we can say.
The more or less.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're looking at a lot of touches, a lot of repetition, a lot of you give some instruction, based on the drill and what am I trying to accomplish? I'm trying to accomplish kids being comfortable with pucks, skating, turning, passing, all that kind of stuff. So let's say we get to the U10, that'd be the first year or two of AAA hockey. It's I would say the same thing as far as the skill sets go. Is like you're trying to get them to move well, handle the puck well, be comfortable with the puck, and all that kind of stuff, with a little bit of system, like a little bit, because like that's what I was going to say earlier, is as you get younger, you got to be really aware of what their brains can absorb, right? So if you're teaching all the time, like just think about it, take 10, 20 kids that are 10 years old, the brain is like, can I just do something? And they're fiddling with pucks and stuff like that. You got to read that. So you can get really upset as a coach, right? You can lose your mind, say, hey, you need to listen. And it's like they just can't help themselves. There's a puck there, and they want to play with it, and they just wanted to get the drill done. So it's like the more that you can keep it fast moving, like a little bit of instruction, maybe a good demo, and let them do drills, then that's probably the most benefit to it. So now you have your team and you're going into practices and stuff like that. Of course, you're going to do some specific um, drills that are going to benefit like a team structure because they're there to learn hockey as well as just it's not just a skill building day. So they got to learn how to play a little bit. So doing some breakouts, neutral zone passing, and moving the puck like forechecks, a little bit of forechecks and stuff like that. Like it's more of a concept, right? Like on a forecheck, it doesn't have to be exactly this. It's like let's get two guys on the puck hard and one guy high. 2-1-2, very simple. The neutral zone play is not really that specific. It can be, it doesn't need to be because you teach them how to back check hard and stuff like that. But I think the most important thing that you can get out of coaching the youth is it's a fine line, because I guess this is the point I wanted to make here when they're young, because I just realized it again this past week, is they are just little kids. And like a lot of parents are really really stuck on the development and how what they're learning. Because when I look at a kid, for example, one of the better ones shoot a puck, it's like they're not shooting it right at all. That's not a proper shot at all. Like very very seldom, anyways. You get the odd kid that has, he can sauce a puck or he can shoot the puck well, brings it in, hides it a little bit, but that's for whatever reason he can do that. But for most of them, they're just winding up for shots. You can tell it's telegraphed for like 5 minutes, and you can see it coming. Passes are telegraphed and stuff like that. But that's okay. So you got to let that go. You have to actually realize the young kids, they are young kids, and you can't get too frustrated with it. I think the other thing with teaching the young kids is really really important is that you build some type of relationship and some kind of trust, that you care about them. So a little thing like pulling kids aside and teaching them, and it doesn't even have to be much, but like a simple thing. Like I told one of my kids this week that I went up to him on the third day, talked to him obviously throughout the week, but on the third day, it was like a biggest compliment I could give him, even though he doesn't know how big it is. But I said, you remind me of a player that I trained, and I said his name is Brendan Warren. He was a great player. He used to train with me all the time from the States, and he played on the U.S. national team, and got drafted to Arizona, and Went to Michigan for scholarship at Michigan and all that. He goes, "Oh yeah, really?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to try to see if he can send him a note." But he went away with, "Oh, the message was you're a good hockey player. You remind me of someone that was very successful," and it pushed his buttons, right? Um, so I think at the youngest levels, if you can just have the relationship and just build them up, and not get too hung up on all the technique, because that is going to come over time. And again, as we get older, puberty, are you into hockey actually? Or as it gets more serious, can you continue to play? So, anyways, from U10, it's skill development. It's a lot of it, a lot of touches, and because you go in a tournament, you're going to play a team that's from a big city or whatever, and it's just going to be a skill thing, anyways. It's like who's the fastest, who's they got more better players, so it's like just try to compete with them, right? Um, Teach them a little thing like in practices and stuff. You can give them little coaching cues on how they can do something better, but it's mostly about skill development.
Yeah. Sticking on the young guys before we get to the older ones, I I think it's important. We've made a couple of these examples we've used before because we've talked about the age appropriate thing quite a bit. It's the example that you gave that I liked in one of our past episodes was talking about how if you told an adult to do the RFE squat, right, rear foot elevated split squat, and they've never done it, and you keep trying to teach them, like they're just trying to figure out how to stand on one foot. They're not even worried about executing the move properly. Like they're just trying to stand on their one foot, right? So if you're trying to teach young kids how to stick handle, it's like they're just trying to make sure that the puck doesn't roll off their blade. So that means that they're going to skate with their head down. They're not going to have smooth hands back and forth. They might be smacking it back and forth. They're not going to do anything right, and kids that do pick it up or do listen and get it a little bit, then that's like that's bonus. Like those are kids that are few and far between at that age, you know? So I think to your point about, parents getting really hung up on development, whatever that means for that age. It's like we'll catch heat all the time. Or I'll catch heat all the time from parents where they're just like, "Well, they're like, why aren't they stopping them more and correcting more?" And it's like, have you ever tried to do that with your kid? You can't do it. You can't do it. That doesn't mean you never give them a teaching point, obviously, but to a a large extent, they need to just run the routes. Like just do the drill, just hold the puck, just so I can say, here's what it should look like, and do it with my inside outside toe drag 360 spin. Like they're not going to do it right, and you shouldn't expect them to be doing it right, and it shouldn't be measured as a failure if they don't do it right, because that's actually just where they're at. So that's really important to remember with those young kids. And then as a coach, this is where you don't really need to know a whole lot about hockey to be effective with this age group, because it's not about mastering the real intricate details of a skill. It's just about showing the route and letting them run the route. So if you can just skate and basically stick handle, if Joe Dad that played a little bit of hockey is next to you on the ice and you're doing the stick handling drill and they're doing the stick handling drill, it's the same to the 10-year-old or the 9-year-old or the 8-year-old. It's the same, because you run through it and you execute it perfectly. The dad runs through it and executes it at maybe 50% of what you're executing it at. But to the kid, it's like, okay, he goes through the cones and he stick handles. That's what they think, right? So when you're in that position as a coach, you don't have to be the most effective skill teacher there is. And the parent should be aware of that. Like if you have any common sense, like that should make sense to you as a parent or the one watching, you know? And then when it comes to the system stuff, it's like, we're not even there yet. We're not even there yet. It's just like basic structures that you pointed out.
Well,
that you're
what
gonna teach
was
later.
the kid thinking? Like, I was just watching the games there, and these are good hockey players. These are actually really good hockey
Mhm.
players, and we're watching in the games, and it's like if there's a 3-on-1 that the puck should move, and the kid thinks that he can score a goal,
Mm, right.
he's trying to score
Yeah.
or he's
Well,
shooting, right?
the other thing too, like just another thing I want to just point out is we were talking with one of the parents at the end of the camp about the brick tournament, right? And some of these, or not even just that one, just some of these big like young kids spring hockey tournaments. And I'm trying to explain to some of the parents that the way that kids at that age play hockey is not the way hockey is played. And it's hard to understand that when they're young. But if you get a defenseman that can just rush the puck through the whole team and score, and he leads the tournament in points, he's got 30 points in 10 games or whatever. It's like, that's great that they did well. Like, I'm not trying to say that's not good. Like, that's great. But if we keep it in perspective, it's like that is not how the game is played. So if he's just faster or can just shoot better or is bigger and can just fight his way to the net, or maybe the goalie is 5'1" and can't reach or whatever, it's like, this is not real hockey. So it's cool to have a good experience. It's cool to be excited that your kid is showing some skill or whatever. But you have to be able to keep in mind that at that age, you being one of the elite, whatever that means, doesn't mean a whole lot, right? It's nice and it's exciting and it's fun and all of those things can be true.
It means there's a good base there.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
Right? But just let's relax.
Yep.
You know, let the kid get a little bit older. You know, we have one kid, that phenomenal player that these guys were talking about, and I look at the parents, and the parents are like both really small, you know? So, okay, that's going to turn out to be a factor later on, you know? It could. Now, it doesn't mean it won't, and it doesn't mean the kid won't be a stud. Maybe he will be. But it's not like a shoo-in because they're 10 and really good that they're going to grow up and be unbelievable, you know? Because they could hit that puberty age and it just flattens out for them.
Which you see
you know? A ton.
Very, very
a ton.
often.
So my point bringing up like this kind of the brick tournament thing in particular, it's like they have like the list of all these kids that are like the top scorers, and like this kid broke a record for how many points they got, and it's like that's fine, like all that's fine, but it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything, you know, because you got a bunch of like stud hockey players that now play in the NHL that went to that tournament, and then you have more that didn't, and
exactly.
they're studs in the NHL or whatever.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's important to keep that perspective, particularly at that age. It's a tricky age for a lot of people because they start to get excited early, but that covers kind of like let's call it U10. You touched on a little bit about the skill development stuff, and keeping things fun for the most part is kind of the theme.
Well, it is. It's got to be fun.
Yeah.
It's got to be fun. I'm not saying all fun and it's no seriousness, because this is a great chance to teach kids. Like the base of coaching is like, it's really important that you let them have fun, but it's also important that you teach them a little bit of hockey, some principles of hockey, but it's also important to learn, you know, to have the coaching cues of hard work and what hard work is, and all those cues that as they get moving forward, that they've heard that since they're 8 or 9 years old, right? You got to work hard. There's always someone that could be better. You could be better, like whatever, but it's like teaching the concept of even long-term, right? Like in your practices, like when someone struggles at something and then all of a sudden they start getting it, it's like rewarding them, you're not buying them anything, but like, you know what I mean? Like, but rewarding them, saying see what happens when you put your time in,
right?
You know, it's those little things that you can do from a young age where it's just, because most of it doesn't stick. Some of it does.